All right, so get this. We're going deep today, a deep dive into scriptures.
Ooh, sounds intense.
But not the usual stuff you hear, like in Sunday school. We're going way beyond the surface to uncover some hidden depths.
Sounds like my kind of thing.
Right. And we're doing it with this text called The Mystical Foundation of Scriptures.
Yeah.
It's from the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood.
I've heard of them. They're all about ancient wisdom, right?
Yeah, a modern group, but tapping into that old wisdom. And let me tell you, some of their insights are pretty mind-blowing.
Well, I'm ready to have my mind blown. What have they got to say about scriptures?
Well, the thing is, they don't see scriptures as these like literal interpretations. It's more about understanding them through these, well, they call them three distinct lenses.
Three lenses. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Lay it on me. What are these lenses?
All right, so picture this. You're climbing a mountain. The first level, like base camp, is the laws of nature.
Okay, I'm following.
This is like your practical guide to living a good life, right? Think Ten Commandments, ethics, treating others well, the bedrock of society.
Gotcha. So it's like that basic moral compass most folks are familiar with. But what makes this perspective, unique to this mystical foundation?
Right, good question. It's not just about blindly following these rules. It's about understanding the deeper principles behind them. You know, like they use the example of the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Oh, yeah, that's a wild one.
On the surface, it's like, what's going on here? But they interpret it as this representation of our own inner struggle, to overcome our lower nature.
Ah, I see. So
Yeah,
even these seemingly simple stories have these like hidden depths.
that's exactly it. Okay, so we've got our base camp. What's the next level up on this mountain?
All right, level 2. This is where we engage the mind. It's called intellectual insight. Here, scriptures become like this source of inspiration. You start pondering those big existential questions about the universe, about consciousness, about our place in it all.
So this is where philosophy and spirituality kind of like intersect.
You got it. And the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they emphasize how this level isn't just for like theologians. They point out that even Einstein, and he wasn't traditionally religious or anything, he found inspiration in how scriptures explore like time and space.
Wow, that's a cool connection. Never thought about it that way. All right, 2 levels down, 1 to go. What's at the peak of this mountain?
The peak, this is where things get really mystical. It's spiritual awakening. And here it's about unlocking the hidden meaning, behind those symbols and parables. It's about those profound truths about the soul and reality.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Can you give me an example of how the same passage can be interpreted, on all 3 of these levels?
Absolutely. Take the creation story from Genesis. On the laws of nature level, it sets the stage for humanity's responsibility to take care of the earth, right? Intellectually, it gets you thinking about the origin of the universe, the nature of creation. But on that spiritual awakening level, the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they see it as this allegory for the soul's journey from this state of unity with the divine, into the material world.
Whoa, that's a totally different way of looking at it. I'm starting to see how this multi-layered approach could totally change how someone understands scriptures.
It's about recognizing that the same text can speak to you in different ways, depending on where you're at on your own journey.
This is fascinating. Okay, so we've got these 3 levels, but how do we actually access them? Especially those higher levels. It seems like it'd take a lot of training or special knowledge or something.
That's where the idea of scriptures being this like language of symbols comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that. Why are symbols so important in spiritual teachings anyway?
Well, think about it. How do you describe something as big and as profound, as the experience of divine love or the nature of reality itself? Ordinary language just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, I get that. It's like trying to explain the feeling of awe you get when you look up at the night sky. Words don't do it justice.
Exactly. Symbols, they bypass those limitations of language and they tap into this deeper understanding. For example, take the serpent in the Garden of Eden. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they don't see it as a literal creature, but as a symbol representing the Kundalini energy, this powerful force that's like dormant within us.
So it's about seeing past the literal and understanding the deeper meaning behind these symbols.
That's it. And what's really interesting is the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they believe that these symbols aren't just like random or arbitrary, They're encoded with these specific meanings passed down through these ancient traditions.
So it's like cracking a secret code, revealing a whole new dimension of understanding. But how do we know we're interpreting them correctly? Is there like a a key or something.
Well, the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood offers some guidance, but they also really stress intuition and personal experience. The deeper you go, the more these symbols start to resonate, like personally, revealing their hidden wisdom.
So it's not just intellectual analysis, but also about tapping into this deeper, intuitive understanding.
Exactly. They encourage us to approach scriptures not just with our minds, but also with our hearts, with our souls.
This is mind-blowing. I feel like I'm seeing scriptures in a whole new light. So we've got these three levels, the language of symbols, but there's still so much more to uncover about this mystical foundation.
It's amazing how those symbols can be like little doorways, leading to this deeper
It's
understanding.
like they're whispering these secrets, and we just got to figure out how to listen.
Exactly. And the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they think these whispers, they're like echoes, across different spiritual traditions. They see connections between the tree of life in Kabbalah, the chakras in Hinduism, even the structure of the human body.
Hold on, so they're saying there are like these universal patterns embedded in these old teachings.
Exactly. It's like this universal language of symbols, and they all point to these fundamental truths about reality and what it means to be human.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder if those ancient mystics were all tapping into the same source of wisdom somehow.
That's a question that's been bugging scholars and spiritual seekers forever.
It's like when you hear a song or read a poem and it just nails a feeling you've had but could never put into words. You feel this connection with the artist across time and space.
And that's what the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood is trying to do with this mystical foundation of scriptures. They want to help us tap into that connection with the wisdom of the ages.
So how do we actually use this multi-layered approach in our own lives? If we pick up a scripture, where do we even start?
Well, first thing to remember, you don't need to be a scholar or a mystic to get something out of this approach. They just encourage us to come to the text with an open mind and a willingness to look beyond the surface.
So it's more about the journey than reaching some final interpretation.
Exactly. Let's say you're reading about forgiveness. On the level of laws of nature, you might think about the benefits of letting go of anger and resentment. But as you move up to intellectual insight, you might start thinking about the bigger meaning of forgiveness, its role in stopping violence and helping people heal.
And on the level of spiritual awakening,
That's where you might start to explore the deeper spiritual implications of forgiveness, its power to free us from the past and connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
so it's about engaging with the text on multiple levels, letting it speak to you in different ways.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. What parts speak to you? What challenges your beliefs? What makes you curious?
It sounds like a much more active and engaging way to approach scriptures than just reading them passively.
It is. And the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they say this isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's about letting the wisdom of these ancient texts actually change your life.
That's a powerful idea,
Yeah.
taking these teachings beyond the pages of the book and making them part of our everyday life.
Exactly. And they offer some practical tools to help us do that.
Like what?
Well, for example, they're big on meditation as a way to quiet the mind and access those deeper levels of understanding. They also recommend studying the symbolism and allegory in scriptures to unlock their hidden meaning.
So it's about combining intellectual study with spiritual practice.
Exactly. And they believe that when we do this, we can start to experience the power of scriptures firsthand.
This is fascinating.
Hmm.
I have to admit, I'm still a little skeptical about the whole Atlantis thing. It all sounds a bit out there.
I get where you're coming from. And to be fair, there's no hard evidence to prove Atlantis actually existed. But it's interesting how this idea keeps popping up throughout history. From Plato's writings to modern esoteric traditions, the story of Atlantis has captivated people for centuries.
So even if it's just a myth, it's a myth that really speaks to us on some level.
Exactly. And maybe that's the point. The story of Atlantis reminds us that there are mysteries in this world that we don't fully understand. It encourages us to stay open to the possibility that there are ancient wisdoms out there waiting to be rediscovered.
And maybe the mystical foundation of scriptures is part of that rediscovery.
It could be. Whether or not we believe in Atlantis, what's undeniable is that this text offers a unique and compelling way to understand scriptures. It challenges us to think beyond the literal interpretations and to explore the deeper meanings hidden within these ancient texts.
It's like they're saying, don't just read the words. Listen to what they're whispering between the lines.
Exactly. And who knows what secrets we might find if we learn to really listen.
All right, before we get lost in the whispers, let's shift gears a bit. You mentioned that the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood is all about meditation as a way to understand scriptures. Can you tell me more about that? How does meditation fit into all of this?
Meditation, it's like the key to unlocking those deeper levels of meaning we've been talking about. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they teach that scriptures weren't just figured out through intellectual study. They were originally received through states of deep contemplation.
So it's about reaching a different state of consciousness where these truths become clearer.
Exactly. Think of your mind like a lake. On the surface, you might have waves and ripples, but deep down, the water is still and clear. Meditation is like diving beneath the surface to reach that stillness.
And in that stillness, we can connect with the deeper wisdom hidden in scriptures.
Exactly. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood teaches that by quieting the mind through meditation, we create space for intuitive insights and a deeper understanding of the symbolic language of scriptures.
So it's not just about reading the words, but about creating an inner space where those words can really resonate.
Exactly. It's about developing an inner receptivity to the wisdom that lies beyond the literal meaning.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So for someone who's new to meditation, what kind of practices would the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood recommend?
They're big on finding a practice that speaks to you personally. It could be mindfulness, meditation, mantra repetition, or even just spending time in nature, quieting the mind and connecting to the present moment.
So there's no one right way to do it.
Exactly. The key is to find a practice that helps you cultivate a sense of inner peace and clarity.
So meditation helps us create the space to receive the wisdom of scriptures. But how do we actually apply that wisdom to our lives?
The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood says that true understanding isn't just intellectual, it's experiential. It's about embodying the teachings, letting them guide our actions, and changing our relationships with ourselves and the world around us.
So it's not enough to just know the concepts, we have to live them.
Exactly. And they suggest a few practices to help us do this. One is contemplation, taking time to think about the passages that speak to you and to consider how they relate to your own life.
So it's about taking those insights beyond abstract ideas and bringing them into our everyday lives.
Exactly. And another practice they recommend is visualization, using your imagination to create vivid mental pictures of the symbols and stories you find in scriptures. This can help make the teachings come alive and feel more real.
So it's about engaging all of our senses, not just our intellect.
Exactly. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood believes that by using our minds, hearts, and imaginations, we can unlock the full transformative power of scriptures.
This is incredibly insightful. But I'm curious, the mystical foundation of scriptures is based on the teachings of the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, a group that not many people know about. How do their interpretations compare to those of more mainstream religious traditions?
That's a great question. While there are definitely differences in specific beliefs, the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood sees a common thread running through all the major spiritual traditions. They believe that at their core, these traditions are all pointing to the same basic truths about reality and the human experience.
So we're looking for the universal principles that connect the different ways religions express themselves.
Exactly. They see themselves as bridge builders trying to highlight the common ground between different faiths and to promote understanding and tolerance.
That's a powerful message, especially in today's world, where religious differences can feel so divisive.
It is, and I think it's a message that speaks to a lot of people who are looking for a more inclusive and holistic approach to spirituality.
So it's not about choosing one tradition over another, but about recognizing the wisdom that exists in all of them.
Exactly. And the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood believes that by studying scriptures through this multi-layered lens, we can tap into a deeper wellspring of wisdom and connect to a lineage of spiritual understanding that spans across cultures and throughout history.
This is truly a mind-expanding perspective. We've covered so much ground exploring the 3 levels of understanding the language of symbols, the role of meditation, and even the idea of universal wisdom that transcends religious boundaries. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this deep dive into the mystical foundation of scriptures. It feels like we've uncovered so much already about the hidden meanings in scriptures.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this new way of seeing things.
Exactly. And speaking of seeing things differently, earlier we were talking about this idea of a universal wisdom, that goes beyond any one religion. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Well, the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they believe that all the major spiritual traditions, even with their differences, are ultimately pointing towards the same truths. It's like we're all climbing the same mountain, but taking different paths to the top.
So it's about seeing the underlying unity, even with all the different ways religions express themselves.
Exactly. They use this analogy of Light shining through a prism, you get all these different colors, but the light source is still the same, right? They say it's
Mm,
the same with divine wisdom. It shines through all these different cultures and traditions, taking on different forms, but coming from the same source.
that's a really cool analogy. So how does this affect how we approach scriptures? Does it mean we need to be studying texts from all different religions?
It can definitely add to our understanding. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood encourages us to be open to wisdom wherever we find it, recognizing that different traditions can show us different sides of the same truth.
So it's not about replacing our own tradition with another, but more about expanding our understanding and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. Like, they point out similarities between the concept of the logos in Christianity and the idea of Brahman in Hinduism. Both of them refer to this fundamental creative force, this divine intelligence that's everywhere in the universe.
So by exploring these connections, we get a more complete and nuanced understanding of spiritual concepts.
Exactly. It's like putting a puzzle together, using pieces from different traditions to get the full picture.
This is making me rethink how I approach scriptures. I'm starting to see the connections, like there are these common threads running through them all.
And that's what's so exciting about this perspective. It opens up this whole new world to explore, you know? It lets us see the wisdom in different traditions, not as contradicting each other, but as completing each other.
It's like a giant tapestry, woven with threads from all these different cultures and times, each one making it more beautiful and complex.
Exactly. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood believes that by seeing this connection, we can really appreciate the richness and diversity of how humans experience spirituality.
So where do we even begin with something this big? It's a bit overwhelming to think about exploring all these different traditions.
The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, they say, start with what you feel drawn to. What spiritual traditions have always fascinated you? What questions have you always had? Let those be your starting
So
point.
it's about following our curiosity and our intuition and letting them lead us on this journey.
Exactly. And you don't have to become an expert in every tradition. It's not about gathering knowledge, it's about deepening your understanding and your connection to that universal wisdom that runs through them all.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like it's opened up a whole new way of looking at the world and my place in it.
And that's the power of the mystical foundation of scriptures. It pushes us to question what we think we know, to broaden our horizons, and to start on this lifelong journey of spiritual discovery.
So what's the one thing you'd like our listeners to take away from our deep dive today?
If you remember just one thing, let it be this. Scriptures aren't just old texts to be read. They're living sources of wisdom, just waiting to be unlocked. Approach them with an open mind, with curiosity, and with the willingness to look beyond the surface. You'll discover a world of meaning and transformative power.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey and that you'll continue to explore the mystical foundation of scriptures with a fresh perspective and a sense of wonder.
Until next time, keep searching, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of life.